Hello. This video is about the Eye of Horus. Have you heard about the Eye of Horus? Horus is about the myth of Osiris, Isis, and Horus, with the final events having Horus defeat the evil Seth. Seth, at some point, tears or gouges the eye out of Horus, which causes darkness. Eventually, Horus succeeds in defeating Seth, and in the end, the world is divided in that the winner, Horus, keeps the Nile Valley, the Nile Delta, and Seth is relegated to the desert and basically exiled. Now this, to me, relates directly to the event of the Hyksos, who arrived at Avaris and Goshen as their capital and ruled Egypt apparently for some 300 years. They arrived, firstly, with a small group, numbering in about 70. Now there would have been some Hebrews already there in Egypt, but the main conquering force, the ones who eventually took power, are the ones that came from Canaan, the descendants of Abraham's family, because Abraham had selected Avaris, that location, as explained in my previous video. Avaris is a selected location which truly ties the Hebrews to that city, which ties them to the Hyksos. And more importantly, as a very important note, Avaris, also known as Goshen in the Bible, existed only once. It was destroyed after Egypt was successful. So what caused the Hyksos to finally lose, to finally become so weak that they would be defeated by the forces from Thebes, from the south of Egypt? Well, what happened was this great volcano here, Santorini, had the largest eruption in the history of the earth. It affected China some 5,000 miles away. So obviously it had some disastrous consequences right close by to Egypt. There were tsunamis and mega tsunamis that drove water deep inland, which affected vegetation, dropped salt water into that area, so much so that it affected livestock and affected, of course, the vegetation that wasn't growing. And they couldn't even make bread anymore because the yeast wasn't rising in the bread. That is because salt impedes yeast, prevents it from rising, thus the flat bread. Now, when Santorini erupted, in the eyes of the Egyptians who were under the rule of the Hyksos, this was a godsend to them as they saw the weakening of the Hyksos. So they created the Osiris myth, which clearly states in the myth that Seth came with 72 co-conspirators to defeat Osiris. So we have 70 odd from Canaan who move into Egypt according to scripture. We have 72 who defeat Osiris in the myth of Osiris, which resembles more to me a true story wrapped up in a myth, simply because the Egyptians were very embarrassed at the fact that they had been conquered and ruled by shepherd foreign kings, which were the Hyksos, which were the Hebrews. Finally, when they were expulsed, that number 70 returns into the scriptures at Mount Sinai, shortly after Moses receives the Ten Commandments from God from the Mount Sinai. And 70 elders or 70 rulers are also appraised of God's laws, and according to some Jewish texts, the 70 elders receive additional laws and additional guidance above and beyond Moses secretly, which needed to be decoded. I really have an issue with people who create theologies based on the fact that you need to decode secret messages, that you require such advanced knowledge, requiring, of course, money, requiring wealth to be able to achieve the decoding process, allowing only the wealthy then to reach the true nature of God according to those theological writings, which of course to me is all nonsense. I can't think or imagine for a minute that the creator of the universe would care what type of clothes you wear, or what color, and what style, or what building you go to try to communicate with the Almighty. And not only that, that you would require some secret recipe, some secret words, set of words, in order to be able to establish contact with God Almighty, the all-knowing, the one who would be around you, knowing all aspects of you. Why on earth anyone would believe in the fact that you would require some secret knowledge? Well, I mean, it makes for good revenue for those who peddle that business. In any event, let me reiterate: 70 came from Canaan, 72 co-conspired to defeat Osiris, which is the Hyksos taking power in Egypt. 70 elders received secret information from God over and above what Moses received and told the people and wrote in the Old Testament, also known as the Torah. So let's do quickly now the fact that the Eye of Horus is effectively the Santorini volcano. Here is how I lay it. There's the Eye of Horus that you're very familiar with, you would have seen. A lot of people took through very painstaking studies at the design, the layout, the angles, the stretch, and the this and the that, to try to see if there's some kind of secret messaging in here. Essentially, they were just very grateful that this event took place to weaken the Hyksos. We have a way to have a quick look at it a little bit closer. I lay it out like this only because it is convenient, since I believe that this is truly the eye of the storm where Santorini is. Doesn't matter the dates, because the dates we can argue about. Doesn't matter exactly the exact location, because that we can also argue about. What we do have is we have this myth about the Eye of Horus. And to me, that great storm unleashed such devastation into this entire area of northern Egypt, the Sinai, stretching all across into Jerusalem, all around this area. This caused the downfall of the Hyksos. This was a rejoicing moment of the Egyptians. They were very embarrassed that these foreign kings controlled them for so long, so they attempted to destroy all historical data, all historical markings, anything that had to do with this very, very sinister moment in their lives. They tried to erase it. Finally, when they did chase them out, they destroyed that city of Osiris, known as biblical Goshen. They destroyed it so that that city existed only once. It was never rebuilt. Therefore, there was no other event where that number of Hebrews were forcibly exiled from Egypt. Therefore, I conclude that the Osiris myth is the hidden story of the Hyksos fighting with the Egyptians being an agrarian society, in conflict with the livestock mentality of the Canaans, sheep herders, which is essentially Cain and Abel, where Cain is the agrarian and Abel is the one with the livestock. And because Abel won favor with God for his sacrificing of meat to God, Cain got jealous and killed Abel, making Cain then the evil one, who is the agrarian, the ones who grow fruits and vegetables. In this case, it is a buildup of intentional hostilities to state that those agrarians are evil in nature, that they would kill the one who supplied the valid sacrifice to God. This entire story is from this. I have a subsequent video that deals exactly with the details of the Exodus in view of these details. There you have it. This is my theory of the Eye of Horus. Have a nice day.